Hello, and welcome to Cousin Chat, where we talk about what matters. I'm your host, Donna Pazant, and today, what matters are men and their emotions. And so, joining me for this chat today, I had to have a man. So, Gary, say hello to the people.
Hello, cousin chat people. How are you? Glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here doing this chat with me. And, for when you have a topic like this, men and their emotions, yes, I could have had another cousin or another friend, female, but the authenticity of cousin chat is having guests that know something about what they're talking about. And so that's why I had to have someone of the male persuasion on here today. So Gary has
Lucky me.
decided to join me. So Gary, when I asked you to join this chat with this topic, what were your first thoughts?
Oh boy, Gary's being vulnerable. Well, let me know I had to be vulnerable and honest with my feelings. That's just who I am. So based on the question as it relates to me, I want to answer, how what it means to me and be honest and give my honest opinion to it. That's all how I felt. A little nervous, but I'm excited.
Okay, so I'm looking forward to jumping into this. So, Gary, a lot of boys, like young boys, are taught when they're growing up to be, tough, like toughen up. They don't really show their emotions, and they're taught, don't cry, things like that. And personally, I have a problem with that, but we can get into that a little bit later. But for you, I want to know if it was like that for you growing up, or was it more like the way of life that you grew into because of your environment? So it's basically, there are some boys who are told and taught to be tough and don't cry. And then there are some who just, as a result of where they're growing up, that just becomes a way of life. So what was your story when it comes to that?
For me, it absolutely was my environment. I grew up in the CCP housing projects in Patterson, tough project. So you had to be tough living in the project. So that was the environment. You couldn't be soft. And a baby, it was that you had to be tough because if not, they would try you, you know. I think I was fortunate. I know I was fortunate because I had an older brother who was known in the project. So he pretty much was my buffer. But I do remember, and I was just telling a friend the other day how I remember because of my mouth, things I would say, and the kids wanted to fight me, but Big Brother had to jump in to protect me. But as I grew older, you had to adapt to the environment. They say, "Oh, you can't be, soft, whatever. You had to be tough," and not really. It really didn't have to say that to me. I caught on. You know what I'm saying? I realized at a young age where I lived wasn't the safest place, and that you had to exude or walk a certain kind of way to pretty much be respected and to be safe. And praise God, that did work for me.
Well, yeah, and that's unfortunate that you had to be that way, but there are a lot of people who grow up having to be a certain way. And so I wonder sometimes, if a person has to kind of grow up that way, do you think that, as in, hiding their emotions and not showing how they truly feel, do you think that there is any way they can change that mindset as they become adults?
Absolutely. And once you come into your own, I think changing the environment, depending on who your family, your supporters, friends, you can learn to walk in that confidence. Say, hey, this is who I am as a man, as a young man, and be okay with that, showing emotions. And I think that's what it was for me. Tying back into that, I remember as a kid, I used to sing. And when the people found that I was a singer, they started calling me names. And that made me really withhold the gift for a
Wow.
long time. I never, I never would sing again, and all my family, oh, Gary could sing. But when the community, when we had something like a rec center, me and my sisters, they were background singers, them people like really went at me. Oh, he's soft, like 60, whatever. And I just shut it down. So I really didn't start singing again until I joined the church many years ago in the 90s in Union Baptist in Passaic. And then it was my minister of music because she was a strong woman, but I loved her voice. And that confidence she exuded, she instilled that in me. She was like, Gary, I need you to sing from here. I'm like, okay. Like, and it built me, like, I can do this. Like, and it built my confidence going forward. Like, I'll never forget her. And I really, appreciate that. But I think you can, absolutely. You can. And again, I give it to my environment, the people that I became friends with, and family. Yes, that you can be who you are, express who you are with that confidence in being a man and not be seen weak. Absolutely.
Right. That's the thing. I hope that young men who are listening understand that you can truly be yourself and be accepted. And it's okay. You don't always have to be tough all the time, and especially if it's going to keep you from sharing a gift that you have. Like for you, it was singing. Like, I'm glad you didn't stop singing, and you were at a point in your life where you knew who you were. But for people who are younger, and this can actually be male or female, you never want anyone to stifle your gift. If you have a gift, you have to share it. And hopefully there are people in your environment that can help you. Like Gary, you had that. Growing up, I had that. And so my hope for people listening, especially young men, because that's who I'm really kind of thinking about tonight, our gentlemen out there. Hopefully you have someone in your circle that will encourage you to be your best, and you don't have people pulling you down. And if that does happen, just kind of know who you are and just, stay focused on what you want to do. But taking another route when it comes to men and their emotions, I've seen a lot of articles and I've seen interviews and, shows on TV that say women, sometimes women want a man who's vulnerable, but when they get one, they start questioning, like, do I really want this? So, it's like as soon as they see him cry or really start showing emotions, they give him the side eye or the crooked eye. And it's like, wait a minute, what's happening here? But the thing is, this is what you asked for. So do you find sometimes that does happen?
Absolutely.
That it is likely?
That women want a certain type of dude to express himself, to, again, back, I'm keep using that word being soft, but can share his emotions, whatever. And then when they get that, they kind of take advantage of him, or like they can walk over him. So then as the dude, you're like, okay, you have to know, okay, we got to balance this. I got to show her both sides, what she's really working with. Because I can be that person, but I can also be, the person where it's like I can take control, you know what I mean? And I can show, without, not forcefully, but I'm not a dude that you can just walk over. I have to show the balance that I can be soft, I can be compassionate, but I can be stern as well. So the balance is needed in relationships.
Now, you mentioned a word that I think is interesting, soft. You put soft in that whole equation there. Why do you think it's seen as soft? Because I never said soft. You said soft. Where do you think that comes from?
I think I've heard women say that. They say they want a certain type of dude, but once you show that type of dude they realize they don't want that. Like this, he's too soft, or I can control him, and that's not what I want. I want like a what's the one? Not a thug, but women do like thugs, but they want more hard-nosed dudes. You're right, they're drawn to the bad boys, even if they're Christian women. A lot of times they want that hardness in the dude. But then it goes too far when he's so hard that he's disrespectful and not attentive to them. So that's what I'm saying. As a guy, depending on your lady, you have to show the balance that you're well-rounded. I can be a little stern, but yet I can be the passionate dude that listens to you, that cares, that shows my soft side and is still confident, and I don't have to worry about you challenging my manhood.
Right, because that will run somebody away quicker than anything. Challenging someone's like, who wants to, I don't know why people do that. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, this is what you asked for. God gave it to you, and now you're going to run it away?
Right, yeah.
what sense does that make? But I have to just say on the flip side that there are some men who ask for a godly woman, but as soon as he sends you that, then you start wanting her to do ungodly things. So, but since this evening's chat is just about men and their emotions, we're going to leave that one there on the table and we can revisit that another day. But that's just a little droplet for you to think about. But
we like the image. We like the image. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, thinking about the whole emotions thing, I think that, you know, if a guy is crying, like say, for example, if you stub your toe and you start crying, I'm going to laugh at that. I'm going to laugh that you're crying because you stubbed your toe. That's going to be funny to me.
Really?
But if you stub your toe and you go, oh my God, this hurts. I'm laughing. I'm going to ask you, you know, you all right? You need a Band-Aid or something, but I'm going to laugh at that. If you break down because you stubbed your toe, I'm laughing. But if you are crying because of something that, you know, something horrible that has happened in your life, like the loss of a loved one, or even if you are just something that is really getting to you emotionally, you know, because there are some things that men may cry about that I don't necessarily have to understand to empathize with, you know. But if it's something silly like that, like I said, I'm laughing. You are going, you know. Anyway, I was about to say something. This is clean. But I'm just saying, but when you are, but see, that's the kind of, like, you know, because I've seen people, movies where there's a couple watching a movie and then the guy might shed a tear or something about what's happening. The lady looks at him like, is he crying? You know how they have some shows where they have the audio of the person thinking? But it's the way they look overhead and like, is he crying? But my thing is, but you wanted someone who could show emotion. That's what you said you wanted. So there's a sad part in the movie. So basically the woman can cry, but the man can't. I mean, these are things that sometimes you think about. You know what I'm saying? Like when you really think about what so it's an emotional part in the movie. It's very sad, but he can't cry. You know, why is that?
Right.
Or do you feel like, go ahead.
If it's an emotional part in the movie, and if the guy cries, I would want to see that somewhere in him really relates to that, and it became personal. So he cried to show, like, you know, it touched me. You know, I know for me, I will cry. Now, I'm not going to cry in front of people for the most part, but I will cry. And I think that comes from I call it my release, being a Christian man, because I know my relationship with God, that I can cry unto the Lord, that I can release the things that are bothering me to get that release. So I don't want it to stay within. So I'll release it with a cry, some type of emotion, you know, maybe in worship. But sometimes the tears just come down because I feel like it's cleansing. So if I'm with my lady and she feels like, oh, that's a sign of weakness, then what's going on with you? You know?
Right. And you shouldn't have to feel it, especially a spiritual cry. You know, if you're crying out to the Lord, you should never have to hide that. Like, I don't think anyone should have to hide that. And if you do, then you need to think about the situation that you're in. Because it's probably not going to work, at least not for very long, if you feel like you have to. Because someone who will hide their spiritual cry will probably hide when they pray. You know, they'll probably hide a lot of other things that are, you know, God related. And it's like, wait, if we got to start hiding when we're reaching out to God and crying out to God, then this is not a relationship that I need to be in.
Right.
You know,
absolutely. Because I should be able to cry. I should be able to talk to you and be comfortable and be received on whatever level it is. I think that will help relationships even long term. If I can be my authentic self, this is who Gary is. You know, I don't have to front with you. I don't have to pretend. And if I cry or, you know, show emotion and you're like, wow, don't you see that as strength? Yet I'm weak. But it depends on the person who you're with.
Absolutely. Because you should even be able to come to me and ask me to pray for you if you feel weak in an area, you know. But you should be comfortable sharing that with your partner.
and you not laughing like, girl, he was over there crying last night. That's not good. Not good. Mm-mm.
Right. But I think,
Mm-mm.
Gary, I think that just comes with maturity.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
comes, yeah, that comes with maturity. That comes with life lessons learned,
Life lessons learned. That's right.
because I probably look at this differently than I did maybe when I was 20 or 25
Yeah,
or
right.
30. Well, we're going to stop there. 35, 40.
Right. Because at 25, were you really looking for a man that was really just showing his feelings? And, if he cried, like, that's not the space you were in.
No, you might have thought that,
Right.
but I don't know if I really would have respected that had I
Right.
received it, you know?
So
So
true.
yeah, but men and a lot of times men who don't express their emotions, when they do, it comes out the wrong way.
The wrong way.
Like
Yep,
they're
absolutely.
so busy holding everything in that you don't know how it's going to come out, because it
Yeah,
has to come out.
it
The
does.
emotions have to come out. And people
Absolutely.
say there's nothing wrong with women having a good cry, and I
Mhm.
believe there's nothing wrong with men having a good cry. It's just seen
That's right.
differently
It's seen
sometimes.
differently because you don't want the aggression coming out. It
Right.
rather let them just release that and out in a way that, okay, that's good for the both of you. Other than, being on the attack, or feeling I can't be the man who I really am because I'm in fear of you judging me, looking at me differently. So I can't be my authentic self and release myself. I got to go elsewhere, talk to somebody else. What is that doing for the relationship?
Right.
So,
But see, that's even one of the challenges I have as a teacher when I see some of my young male students who I see are troubled or are dealing with something that's very difficult. And sometimes you can see them on the verge of tears, but they will not,
yeah, yeah,
not let one tear fall, not one.
no,
So when
not
I
one.
see that though, I'll just ask them, I'll come up to the desk and be like, you want to go get a drink of water? And then
Yeah,
a lot of times they're like, yeah. So then I just let them go.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
go. Because it
That's the
keeps their,
out. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
What'd you say, Gary? That's the out?
That's that's the out. Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. So well, thank you guys for tuning in today and for listening to this conversation. I really hope you got something from it. If you want to follow Cousin Chat, and I really hope you do, we are on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and YouTube as well. And if you want to listen to the other episodes that are already out there, you can go to cousinchat.com. That's CUZNCHAT.com. And the links to other streaming platforms are there. So if you prefer to listen on Apple, Spotify, Google Cast, Radio Public, Stitcher, so before you leave, I always like to leave our listeners with something to think about. And for me, the takeaway would just be, if you say, now I'm actually talking to women now, if you say you want a partner who is vulnerable and capable of showing emotions and expressing feelings, don't be mad when you actually get it, especially if you are a believer, because
Mhm.
you can ask God for something, and we all know He's very capable of giving you what you ask for.
Yeah.
So just be ready for it and know what it looks like. Have conversations, with your partner, and just see, well, what does this look like to you? What does showing emotions look like to you? What does it look like to you if I'm weak? What does that mean? Is that me crying? Like what, have these conversations, because I think you really need to know what you're getting into and what you're asking
Absolutely.
for. Gary, do you
Absolutely.
have anything to add to the takeaway?
Yeah. And as a woman, you have to be ready for that type of guy that doesn't have a problem with showing feelings, emotions. And maybe that's a challenge for you if you're a person that hasn't been free and able, maybe in your environment you grew up in, you wasn't free to show who you really were. You had to be tough. Who knows? And maybe you're guarded and have yet to let that wall down. So you got to be open. What you're asking for, be willing to receive, but at the same time, it applies to self.
Yeah, and that was actually an excellent point. I know we're in our takeaway segment, but for the women who have only seen the tough guy, the guy who doesn't show emotions, the non-vulnerable guy, for women who grew up with that, thinking that that is the norm, they will probably have a hard time accepting someone who is vulnerable, who does, show their emotions and express them. So that is something to really think about. That's that might be another conversation. If I get a woman on here and have the same type of conversation, that would be, I think, a good discussion. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me tonight, Gary. This has been really great.
Yeah.
So will you come back again?
Absolutely.
Good. Great. So until we come back to our next chat, I'm Donna.
This is Gary.
And that's it, folks. Be blessed, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See ya.